if you had that 50 million, you invest it in something that could give you 10% yield, and then you would take that money, half of it, for you to be able to rent something that's equally as big as that 50 million peso house and rent for around 2.5 million pesos a year. People would think that, anong marerent mo ng ganung amount? Why would people want to buy a house that's 50 million pesos? What if you're still making money? What if you have savings? What if you have an emergency fund? What if you have other investments? What if you have other sources of income? Hey guys, I posted something in Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. It was actually a poll. It was a question asking if you had 50 million pesos and if you just had one choice, what would you do with it? Please do note I was very specific that 50 million pesos was something that you would use to buy a house, live in it, not actually rent it, versus 50 million pesos, you would invest that into something that would give you a yield, at least for simplicity, since I know majority of the people watching me are into the equity market, are into crypto, or into US stocks, that you can get a yield higher than 10%. Of course, 10% is not something that's fixed. I think the narrative there is, on a year that you get 40%, that 40% already you can stash it and cover for 4 years and then do it all over again, and even wait for year 2, year 3 if it's not doing so well, okay lang, because you've already stashed something that's relatively higher. Or even for those who are into the cryptocurrency market, who are into staking, very sure that you could get yields that are higher than 10%, or you could even use just capital appreciation for it. Even for stocks, no, there are some stocks, especially if you bought them when they were lower, that could give you a very high dividend yield. So the whole context of my question was, if you had that 50 million, you invested in something that could give you 10% yield, and then you would take that money, half of it, for you to be able to rent something that's equally as big as that 50 million peso house and rent for around 2.5 million pesos a year. People would think that, anong marerent mo ng ganung amount? If you do a normal Google search, makaka-actually rent ka na ng bahay sa Ayala, Alabang with 2.5 million pesos a year. So 2.5 million pesos a year is roughly around 200 plus thousand pesos a month, and you can get a very good house in Ayala, Alabang, and you can even get it lesser pa nga than 200,000 pesos a month. That being said, also, I placed for that particular example 50 million, but if you do a search even for Ayala, Alabang, majority of the houses there you would see around north of 50 million already, 70, 100, madami pang ang bahay above 100 million pesos. But I just wanted to put 50 million as a base figure for computation purposes. So if you're actually saying that, why would people want to buy a house that's 50 million pesos? Even if you check and research BF Homes, Parañaque, it's not even Ayala, Alabang, you would get houses already around 20-30 million pesos. If you go to the Taguig area, it's even more expensive there. But if you go to the Apovay area, which is outside BGC, prices of even townhouses there are around 15-20 plus million pesos already. And even if you go to Wakwak or QC, you would get townhouses there that are 20, 30, 40 million pesos already, and those are just for townhouses. So I'm just placing that number just as a figure that we could actually peg, no? But it would also be the same. I could have said that, okay, 5 million pesos, anong gagawin mo? Gagamitin mo ba yung 5 million pesos din para tirhan? Or would you actually invest that money and then the earnings from that you would use to actually rent? I just wanted to get also a pulse of people on what would you value more. Would you want to own the asset that's yours, that although pag tinitirhan mo, hindi mo siya mabe-benefit? Please remember, if it's a property that you will live in and then you don't have an intention to sell later on, kasi pag totoo you can sell it, pero saan ka titira? So pag binenta mo din siya, automatically you will have to transfer to another property that's either further away or smaller, because at the end of the day, kung bibili ka ulit ng isa pang bahay, either mas maliit na yun or mas malayo if you want to use the proceeds of the cash that you would use for the house. If there's no intention for you to sell it, then it's an asset, pero I don't think you can also put it in a way that it's not giving you cash flow. It's there. That's totoo that at some point later on, if you want to sell, pwede mo siyang ibenta. Pero it stops there. If you're gonna use it forever, and if you don't have any intention to sell it, you're just getting an asset that's increasing in value. If you think about it, no, this is something that's not talked about dun sa posts, no, there were different comments, and I appreciate your comments, especially the ones that were very insightful and very informative. But what's not talked about is, it's as if that yung 50 million pesos, papatulugin mo lang. That 50 million pesos will be invested. But not just that. I just mentioned that half of it would be placed to use something for rent, but you still have 2.5 million pesos na extra na hindi mo gagamitin. And the 2.5 million pesos na extra, na hindi mo gagamitin, you can either invest it more or you can just use it to live life and do whatever you want. It was a bit open-ended because there could be so many variables there also that what if you're still making money? What if you have savings? What if you have an emergency fund? What if you have other investments? What if you have other sources of income? Of course, hindi ka naman bibili ng bahay ng 50 million kung wala kang ibang source ng income, kung wala nang pumapasok. It would be irresponsible that bibili ka bahay 50 million tapos wala nang pumapasok sa'yo. The whole context of you buying a house that's worth 50 million pesos is that you already have a source of income. Meron pa rin pera na papasok because if you buy that 50 million peso house, that means you would need money to maintain it. You would need money to pay the taxes. You would still have to buy groceries. So the whole context of everything that we're talking about is that you have savings, you have investments, you also have cash flow. You have to also consider this. If you get a 50 million peso house, the maintenance for that also, it's not just about the monetary impact of maintaining it, but it's also the hassle and bustle to be able to go through all of that, just the fixtures. And I've seen some friends who have even 9-digit worth of houses that hindi biro, pintura pa lang for a very, very big house is expensive. To just fix the roof or to seal it also is very, very expensive. Pag nag-rent ka, you skip all of that eh. Hindi mo na problemahin yung taxes, hindi mo na problemahin yung fixtures or pag-ayos nun because you're renting, and it gives you the flexibility that kung ayaw mo na doon sa area na yun, you can easily transfer instead of you being also tied down. If the house that you are renting in also is not something that appeals to you anymore, or what you're paying for it is not value for money anymore already because there might be better deals out there, then renting also is something very, very ideal. It's not naman that yung 2.5 million that you will pay out for rent is something that comes from your salary. It's passive income eh. It's asset making an income for you to be able to pay for that expense. Plus, it would generate 2.5 million for you extra that you can do for something else. That won't happen if you buy that entire asset as a house because it's not generating anything for you. So I'm not saying buying property is wrong because I have exposure myself in property. I'm just placing an argument for this particular video. And what's interesting, based on the results, a lot of people wanted to rent more than buying a house, and it shows how things are evolving. Also, the narrative is evolving that people older than us would always think that bili ka ng bahay kasi para may security ka pag tanda mo, bili ka ng bahay kasi tataas yung rent, baka hindi mo mabayaran yung rent later on, bili ka ng bahay para meron kang security. I think the whole context of that was majority of the people 20, 30, 40 years ago, they weren't entrepreneurs. They weren't investors. Majority of them were employees. I think it made sense that if you are an employee, you really didn't build savings or investments, then it's very, very prudent to buy the house so that when you are 60, 70, 80 and you don't have a lot of savings and investments, you don't have to worry about rent anymore. You don't have to worry of all of those other expenses that come along with not having the security of having a house. If you're a person who has adequate savings, you're a person who has investments, you are a person who has sources of income that's not active anymore, even though magtaas ng rent, because your investments are also growing, that means that you can actually pay for that rent. You can actually pay for it in perpetuity. So I think it's not wrong to buy a house. It's also not wrong to rent. People always say na sayang yung pera mo, patapon yung pera pag nagre-rent. Hindi naman I'll qualify it. Kung yung pera na meron ka, ginastos mo sa bagay na liability also, that doesn't appreciate for you in value, kaya ka nagre-rent, then I think it would be better to buy a house. But if you had that money and you would use it to buy assets, then I think you'd be better off also. So it also will go back to your sense of control. It will also go back to your ability to be able to be prudent with your money. Because kung magiging pababaya ka sa 50 million, kahit 1 million yan, kahit 5 million yan, it won't do you any good. But if you know how to prudently allocate it, that you're putting it into an asset, then I think it's not wrong also to rent because you maintain that asset, it gives you cash flow, it takes care of your lifestyle, and in the same way, it might be even growing faster than what you're actually paying for. I want to answer it from my own context and what would I actually do. So please do note this, that while I'm saying this, I have exposure in property, I have cash, and I have exposure also into the equity markets and other more liquid investments. So I will answer it from my own context and my own bias. Most likely I'll rent because I like flexibility, I like liquidity, I know what to do, where to actually invest it. Di ko hawaldasin yung pera, I won't be be tempted to actually take it out. Computing it, I want the ability to be able to be flexible as compared to having this very, very large asset that it will be very hard for me also to liquidate, and then the taxes for it also. Renting gives me the narrative that I can live anywhere, I can move anywhere, but in the same way, I don't need to actually be scared about could I actually pay rent because I was responsible in actually saving and investing also. When we also got married, I forgot to mention this, that one of the things that we did first was we purchased property. That's why I'm not saying it's also wrong. It depends also on what your value system is as a family, as a household, because I think that will also determine if that bilang ikaw nagde-desisyon. And for those who have been following this channel, you know I'd always say, hindi ng stock market kung walang love life, happy wife, happy life. So if your spouse wants to have a house, then buy the house. But if both of you are in agreement naman na it's okay for us to rent it because we have the ability, we have savings, we have investments to be able to pay for that property in perpetuity, kahit magtaas ng rent, then it doesn't really matter. If you notice what I'm actually saying here, it's still a case-to-case basis. Traditional thinking would say that bili ka na ng bahay because that's the best way for you to go. At the end of the day, that's not the only asset class out there. If you're looking for return, if you're looking for something that could give you cash flow, if you're looking for flexibility, if you're looking for the ability that I don't want to deal with the taxes, I don't want to deal with the repairs, etc., then renting might be a good deal for you. But if you found a really good deal na property, na mura, and then you see yourself living there already, you don't see yourself moving, and then you don't mind going to the hassle and bustle of paying taxes, doing all of the repairs, maybe a house is also good and also well. And it's not just about if it's 50 million or it's 10 million, it's more about what do you value more. Do you want the stability of ownership, or do you want the flexibility of being liquid also with your capital and get cash flow from it? So that will be my take. It's case-to-case basis. It depends on what your specialty is, because at the end of the day, kung di ka naman talaga magsa-stocks, di ka mag-crypto, or di ka maging entrepreneur, go the safer route, buy the property so you have stability at the later stages of your life. But if you're the person that know how to handle your cash and know how to invest it, I don't think it's wrong if you would rent. And that's why it leads me to my answer that 50 million pesos, I'd invest it into something that would give me a return, because I still own the asset, I get a return, and then that return allows me to pay for my rent. As long as the asset is there, I could always still use it if I choose to buy a house later on. I could actually still buy a house kasi pwede ko naman gamitin yung pera para bumili ng house also later on, because it's still an investment. I guess what it gives me is option that until I don't want to use it yet, I don't actually have to buy anything. But if I want to use it, I have the cash right there to be able to deploy and buy the house. Buying the house means that you don't plan to change your mind. Being liquid and investing it into something that will give you cash flow, or investments that are liquid, means that you want the flexibility, you want the cash flow, and you don't want the hassle. So there, I hope that this was something that was insightful. I hope that this is something that gave you value also. If you want more discussions like this, and there's so much to unpack here, no, I wanted to discuss more, but those are the things off the top of my head. If you guys have more questions about this, and if you want me to discuss this, do a deep dive even more, even give you numbers, put it in the comment section below, and I'll try to make videos about that. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Marvin German. I make videos about investing, so not just about the stock market or the crypto market, but interesting topics like this that I think are beneficial in terms of how you deploy capital, in terms of how you go about your investments as well. Like, share, subscribe, and smash the bell. I have a second channel too. I appreciate it if you could subscribe to that too. Seminars which are coming this August and this October. Links are in the description below. If you want to invest in crypto markets, US markets, and foreign exchange markets, we have brokerages that you could actually use. $1 to buy US stock, 500 pesos to buy crypto, and if you enter forex markets, they will actually give you $30 as part of your equity that you could use to actually trade as well, and as an entry-level cash position for you. So there, I hope that this was something that helped you, and this is Marvin Germo. I hope this video helps you trade well, trade strong, trade smart. See you all again soon, and God bless you all.